The mighty Steam summer sale rages on until July 13th, and in this video I'm going to share some strategy and simulation deals that are a bit more wallet friendly. Everything in this video is under $10. Without any further ado, and with our YouTube housekeeping aside, let's jump in and take a look. First and foremost, Age of Empires 2, the definitive edition. At a 75% off discount, it'll take it down to around $5 US. The pricing will be mostly accurate, but it might be off by $1 or $2 thanks to regional pricing throughout the video. Moving along though, Age of Empires is a obviously fantastic RTS series, a series grounded in history, and my personal favorite is Age of Empires 2. The definitive edition is very clean. Obviously it revamps the older graphics, the older animation, sound, etc., and brings it into the modern era. But of course, this is still a classic Age of Empires game. As we discussed in my previous video, the entire Age of Empires franchise is on special. Last time I recommended Age of Empires 4 because it's the newest game and likely the most user-friendly. But that is doing a slight disservice to the beauty and the magnificence that Age of Empires 2, the definitive edition, delivers. It's got new content, new DLC on the way, the Rome pack, for example, and I think it's a really safe, easy pickup for anybody who likes real-time strategy or historical strategy games. A little bit less historical, Xenonauts is also coincidentally at a 75% off discount, bringing it down to around $5 US. However, look, I have to come clean with you here, everybody. The footage that you're looking at here is actually for Xenonauts 2. And the reason why I decided to include Xenonauts the original in this video is because 2 is coming out in just a few weeks. Why would I want to buy 1 when 2's coming out? Well, some people have criticized 2 for being too similar to 1. There's a lot of overlap and consistency between the two titles. Now, of course, you'd expect that because they're from the same franchise, etc. But nonetheless, there have been some criticisms like that. I found 2 to be a revolutionized, kind of like a definitive edition on steroids for 1. However, you can't really go past 75% off $5 to play Xenonauts 1. It's a tactical strategy game, similar of course to Xcom, in the way that you train up your troops, research new things, and then jump into missions, right? Turn-based tactical missions where you're trying to generally capture something, protect somebody, or advance the story mission. I think a few weeks is plenty of time to play through the first Xenonauts in preparation for the second, and that's why it made it here on my list, and of course, it fits the brief. At only $5, you can't really go wrong. Moving on to the next item on my list, this is Endless Legend. Endless Legend is around $6 US, again that consistent 75% off discount that we've seen so far throughout the video. Endless Legend comes from Amplitude, the studio behind most recently Humankind. Endless Dungeon is on the way. Endless Legend is a few years old now. From memory, I think it's about 7 or 8 years old, and it's got a plethora of DLC on offer, loads of different factions. And actually, factions are one of the things that I think Endless Legend does particularly well. The stories that are told, the lore, the different characters, species, races, I mean, they are all very interesting and very unique. And of course, the world that it builds is quite beautiful as well. I think it has a lot of the consistent strengths that a game like Humankind offers in its sound design and its world building. Although, of course, with Endless Legend, like I mentioned earlier, we are sort of getting up on around a decade old now. So you will notice some fraying around the edges. The next item on my list, a quickie but a goodie, just like me. Oh, he cracked the same joke again. It's Plain B Terraform, or Plan B Terraform, if you can actually pronounce English properly. Plan B Terraform is a fairly straightforward game. It's a beautiful world and a very satisfying road builder inside of it. Essentially, you're tasked with gathering resources to ultimately terraform this barren planet, build up different settlements, and then connect them together with its beautiful transport system. It's a quick game and a fun game, and I'd recommend you check it out. I'd also equally recommend the Total War Definitive Editions. In this case, I'm talking about Medieval 2, which is down to around $7 US at a 75% off discount. I should get that on a t-shirt or something, but this one, alongside Napoleon and Empire, were all sort of reimagined. They were brought back with these definitive editions. You know, they had their graphics upgraded, etc., etc. It's a familiar strategy to a lot of these classic games. I think Medieval 2 is the best Total War classic game, or at least right up there in the top 3. I'll leave that controversial opinion aside and move on to some quick highlights. These games all have fantastic discounts and they generally fit the brief. like Humankind, for example, at an 80% off discount. Of course, also the grand strategy or simulation games out of Paradox's publishing, like City Skylines. The reason why I'm quickly highlighting these three, the final one, of course, being Stellaris, is because I've already talked about them in my previous video, and I don't want to repeat myself. But if you want to check that out, jump over to the channel. I've got a full recommendation list over there. Moving along to our cheap list, though, here we have Prison Architect, $5, 75%. Don't need to say it again. This game is kind of like a colony sim if it were set in a prison. That's basically the best way I can describe it. It has some story-driven storytelling elements, but you won't lean into this colony sim in the same way that you might say RimWorld. However, the way that it approaches the prisoner dilemma, if you will, is a really fascinating one. You have complete control over the prison, its design, the kinds of inmates you take in. Of course, you are literally the architect of this prison. And so it incorporates lots of fun little elements from city builders with those core elements of colony sims, right? Ultimately, this is not a survival game per se, although your life may be at risk as the warden, but you are tasked with keeping the prison operating, economic, and taking care of the prisoners. And I think it balances those challenges really well. The next item on my list is Civilization 5 and Civ 6. I'll talk about Civ 5 at the end of this section. Let's start with Civ 6. I talked about it in my previous video, I admit. However, there the recommendation was to get the Anthology Edition. And if you can stretch to it, I'd still recommend it. However, the base game of Civilization 6 is also available at an incredibly cheap price, around $5 or $6 US. If you haven't managed to pick up Civilization 6 for free or near free, this is the opportunity to do it. The base game is perfectly playable. However, like I say, you will end up with a better experience with the Anthology. Now, the same is true for Civilization 5, the Complete Edition. Arguably actually more important to get the Complete Edition with Civ 5 than Civ 6 is generally the best version to play. Now, I noticed on Steam, this one is just not quite within our price range, is about $2 more, but the Complete Edition, not the base game, it's still full price, but the Complete Edition is on special, nearly $10 US, and this is a great purchase. Probably the best one. Next on my list, Totally Accurate Battle Simulator. This is a sort of a change in pace, if you will. $7 US, 66% off, but that's not why it's a change in pace. It's because this is a bit more of a light-hearted kind of game. Totally Accurate Battle Simulator is, of course, a little bit tongue-in-cheek. It's a physics sandbox simulation game where you can spawn in, earn, etc., a variety of units. And when I say that, that's probably the understatement of the year. There's all sorts of crazy things that you can get, from standard, like pikemen, right the way through to fantasy, to beasts, and all sorts. It's a really fun game to just pass some time. Have a laugh, maybe with some friends. Multiplayer on it is really fascinating. You can have like a battle off or a duel off, if you will. The physics simulation is both realistic and also completely absurd, and it makes Totally Accurate Battle Simulator not only a nice change of pace, but actually just a really fun game to switch off to a little bit. Have some fun, play around with some goofy units. You can't really go wrong. Moving along though, to the next item on my list. This one is, I think, the cheapest entry. This is Gamedev Tycoon. Gamedev Tycoon came out a few years ago now, granted, and at a 65% off discount, you can get it for around $3 US, the kind of money you might find in the back of your couch if, unlike me, you haven't already plundered that a couple of weeks ago. Now, what does it do? Well, it's kind of fairly straightforward. It's a game developer tycoon. So you, my friend, will take the role of a game developer. You'll start in your garage. You get to select the title of the game. You get to select the genre. You get to feed in different inputs, right? How much money are you putting in? How much time? Which of your staff members, all of them have different skills, should work on which sections of the game? Its engine, its graphics. It's quite detailed, but certainly not overwhelming. My favorite part is when the reviews come through to see how well I did with my game. I like designing Civ-like games. As you move through, you'll get more gear, more money, and hopefully upgrade your setup, as you can see, to something quite fantastical. This is a really fun, simple tycoon game. I'd highly recommend you check it out. Also, another sort of slightly reoccurring entry, but with a twist. This is Anno 1404, and I'm specifically, of course, recommending the historical edition, the kind of reinvented one. Now, as you will have just seen, all of these Anno games, these classic ones, 14, 15, 16, 17, have these history editions, these kind of revamped ones. If you're interested in more of the classics, like 1503, 17 is getting a bit more modern, but if you're interested in the classics, you could go out, hunt them down, pick them up. But for me, on Steam, it's Anno 1404. It's the recommended one to take. I think it's potentially the best one. I think it's also probably the most popular, but I don't want to put words in your mouth because I realize that there'll be fans for all of them. I think that these historical editions are great revamps of the classics, and I'd highly recommend Anno 1404. And the final entry on my list, XCOM 2, the complete collection, by the way, not just the base game. Don't muck around with the base game here. The complete collection is around $8 US at a 94% off discount. It takes the cake for the most discounted game on the list. However, there's only about $2 difference between the base game of XCOM and this complete edition. The complete edition includes really the crucial DLC, mainly War of the Chosen, which was, I think, the last DLC. It adds a very significant storyline to the game. The campaign for War of the Chosen is gripping. And it also adds significant challenge. So once you've played through the base game, the first story, you start to get the hang of this strategy game that is obviously at its core a turn-based tactical fighting game. And that's what you can see here. This is a mission, right? A tactical mission, turn-based combat. And then outside of that, much like Xenonauts at the start, of course, we have this kind of overarching worldview where we're researching things, allowing our soldiers to heal, equipping them with better gear, all of that kind of stuff. And it sits within a really great story. As I say, War of the Chosen, probably my favorite. The base game, not too bad either. And when you combine it all together at 94% off, I think, with the exception of Civ 5's Complete Edition, which I have to admit I have a personal bias towards, is actually probably one of the best deals in the video. Thank you so much for joining me today for some more of my strategy game recommendations. These ones, a little bit more wallet friendly. I'll see you all next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.